Now, I'm going to dispense with a couple of footnotes here. Undisputed Attitude, on a record that is seldom considered in the Slayer canon, but is a full-length Slayer release nonetheless, and a document in the history of Slayer. Personal enjoyment, I give it a 3. I know Gemini is widely considered a phoned-in piece, a throwaway that was just swept off the floor, and oh shit, let's add a track here of our own. But I dug it. It as cheese dick and as they didn't give a shit as it does come across. I was still young enough to have some mild impact on it, and I am a Gemini. Historical significance here is a 1. Nobody liked it, but it does get 1 point because it is a document of Slayer's influence and their history. And artistic merit, I give it a really controversial 10 because the fuck you energy is that strong, which is very fitting with the statement that is being made. The way they managed to stick the logo into the cover is kind of crafty, and if you're going to do a whole album of punk covers, this is a very unorthodox choice to actually do covers of songs that you listen to and not songs that the record label would be like, oh, these are going to be great choices for this album. So this one comes in at another week 5. And yeah, we see that there was a really strong start, and it doesn't end well. But now we can dive into carving them out. Oh, it ends there, right? Oh. Alright. Let's just get it out of the way. Repentless. Personal enjoyment, I gave it a 0. I wasn't interested. I did listen to it one time because it's a Slayer album after a fashion. So I wanted to maybe hear it once before I died. And emphasis on that maybe. Nothing stuck with it. It sounded exactly like I expected it. I was like, wow, this sounds like the first really needless Slayer, and in a catalog that contains Undisputed Attitude and most of God Hates Us All through World Painted Blood. That is a statement all of its own with a lot of weight. Artistic merit, firm 0, because the cover art is pure garbage, and as much shit as I could spend talking about it, I don't care. I felt the decision to carry on without Jeff was all points deducted firmly for that. So, let's get the knives out, shall we? What am I gonna transfer from my Coltas first pressing Show No Mercy LP onto the mixtape for playing in the 1986 Dempsey Mobile? Well, this album goes all the way across. There's nothing you can take out of here. The only song I even quasi take issue to is Evil Has No Boundaries. I feel it's a little bit, meh. But you couldn't open the album without it, because otherwise, what are you going to do? Open it with Antichrist? So you switch out Antichrist to Die by the Sword, but Die by the Sword isn't the best way to open it, and you want to hear immediately Fight Till Death after Die by the Sword. Or is that Final Command? I always confuse the titles of those two. But the one that goes, and you could open it with Metal Storm, but then this is getting needless here. So, Evil Has No Boundaries stays in. Nothing is carved out of Show No Mercy. Perfect album. It goes in full and wholesale. Haunting the Chapel, ditto. What could you possibly take out of this? Can't cut anything out of here. Goes in full and wholesale. Hell Awaits, I gave it a 9 for personal enjoyment because it impacted me more than Show No Mercy, an album I heard a lot later on in life. But I can cut Kill Again out of here because it is the song between Hell Awaits and At Dawn They Sleep. And it's the earliest song, besides Evil Has No Boundaries, that if I was compiling my Slayer mixtape of the best Slayer songs, I would be like, alright, well, here's one that I personally would just not slot in as an obvious choice. Everything else here is a fucking greatest hits. Rain and Blood. This is where it's going to get controversial. This one's going to be a little hard to tidy up, but straight away I'm going to take Reborn out. And if I had to tidy it up any further, I think the song I could most dispense with, just for the fact that the entire album is already in the dome and I can hear it on the inner ear playlist anytime I need, is going to be Piece by Piece, which really does pick up the pace on this album just a little bit. So yeah, we're taking out of Rain and Blood, Piece by Piece, and Reborn. South of Heaven. I really wanted to carve this one so hard as to just make it more intense than Rain and Blood, to show you that it can in fact be done with the material on offer here. So strong is this fucking album, for all the shit talkers. But it's really hard to open that album without that album, that open. So can I cut South of Heaven itself off of South of Heaven? Well, I've got other material to work with here. Judas Priest cover straight out the gate, so there's one. I would dispense with, if pressed to take one more off of this album, Mandatory Suicide, because I'm interested most in picking up the pace here. So that may be the least expected choice, but that's the one I'm going to pick. South of Heaven, we're going to take out Mandatory Suicide and the Judas Priest song. Scenes in the Abyss, this is an easy one. Expendable Youth, Skeletons of Society. Pick up the pace on here perfectly. There's no space between the songs, so picking up the pace is really just all it's about on this effort. Divine Intervention. It's a really hard one for me because it's a personal favorite. I'm tempted to go whole and wholesale, but we're here to cut something out, right? So I'm going to stick up for that title track, and I'm going to pluck Ditto Head out. And if I was gun to the head, one more, I would say 213, because as you can see, I don't come to Slayer for the slow stuff. Diabolus in Musica, Desire is the first one. This was the first time I heard a Slayer song and said, this is a Slayer song, just doesn't even need to be. I always, whenever putting Diabolus into a tape format for the car purposes, takes that song straight out the gate. Other songs I'd carve from here, it's really hard to do without chopping the whole flow of it. And with that in mind, Diabolus, perhaps controversially, comes in as the least carved after the Metal Blade era. I'm just not going to fuck with it a whole lot. God Hates Us All. Now here is where I got to start taking notes on what's on this fucking album. There's an intro right out the gate, buddy. So that's one right there. Disciple. The second half of the song is too much Monster energy drink for my taste, but the first half is such a good way to open an album that I literally just at that stop in the middle, right to the next track if I'm transferring it on to my mixtape. jump right into God Send Death. Now, this one gets in simply on the strength of that middle point, if nothing else, because I remember playing that song for a guy, and when Tom gets to that especially sour note, his face made an expression worthy of hearing that note from any normal person. New Faith. I do keep on this album because the timing on that song is just so fucked. It is impossible to tap your foot to when it goes from here to there. At least for someone as white and arrhythmic as Jim Dempsey is. But I did not fail to notice, if you skip the first 10 seconds of every song, going from New Faith through to Exile on this album, you can barely tell the difference. So, does Cast Down make it? Yes, because it brings in that low-end energy at the end. Threshold, though, right out the gate. Exile was debatable, but since at this point I seem to need at least one thing to keep the pace up with Slayer, I'm going to let it stay. And Seven Faces, Bloodline, Deviance, I all felt were interesting songs in their own respect. Bloodline is the most cheese and irrelevant of the three, but it is Slayer, and they do what they do very effectively, regardless of what they try to do. So a Slayer jump riff is still a Slayer-worthy jump riff. Slayer doing movie theater mall crap is at least Slayer doing movie theater mall crap. Deviance is possibly the most singularly interesting song on its own merits that Slayer has going, besides some of the ones that I dispensed with. Warzone is Exile but dumber, so carving that one out. Here Comes the Pain is Bloodline times 3 in terms of just here comes the big fat mall energy, but it does do what it does so well that I would not want to be underneath it in the middle of some hot butt sex when it coiled off from a heart attack, because God, imagine trying to climb out from underneath something that fucking massive. So, immediate carve-outs on this album: Threshold, Warzone, Payback, and if I felt like taking out a whole lot more, I'd probably cut out Bloodline and Exile. This next one, Christ Illusion, is where I barely begin to know the names of the songs. So we're going to do this pretty quick here. This is a matter of what do I keep in this album. I like Skeleton Christ. I like Jihad. Conspiracy is not a song I like, but the name itself was so stupid that I did notch this one down 1 full point in the ranking it on artistic choices. I liked Catatonic, I liked Black Serenade, and I liked Supremist as a way to end the album, and for that little blast beat. Again, I feel that the blast beat is not so easily dispensed with as the jump riff in terms of what Slayer does and the things it allows to be done in music. But they did do that with the blast beat. Maybe in this case more to show you that they can do it than to show you that they did do it. If you're not going to end an album in the manner of Hell Awaits or in the manner of Divine Intervention, this one's a good way to go. So, yeah, I got 5 songs out of this one. Alright, last one up here, because, yeah, aside from the Gemini, I didn't get anything off of those other releases. World Painted Blood. I did dig Unit 731 and Snuff and Beauty Fuel Order as a 1, 2, 3 of, respectively, speedy and alarming, and mid-paced and alarming. We are getting to the point here where Slayer is most interesting when it's slow, and that's kind of an alarming development for me. So, on that note, the last things that I can take out of this one are Psychopathy Red, a song that is most interesting for the fact that its hook is one single note sustained in the middle of the song, and Playing with Dolls, which is probably the sickest song in the catalog besides Dead Skin Mask, and possibly Necrophiliac. And this one got 2 points taken off of artistic choices because they put a song on after this song, much less a crap retread of their first song. Why would you do that? You have this way to end an album, and then... So that is what we carved out of Slayer. I got 5 songs out of that one. That wasn't too bad. Easily the most dense canon of any band that I listened to a whole hell of a lot. Until maybe probably the single most dense. I was about to tease the Angel Corpse video, but we'll have to wait for that to be filmed. Assuming that, of course, we get that far in the world and I live through that many nights. So, thank you for watching. Get a fucking job, and we will catch you next time.